Okay, I think we're on the air live. All right. So welcome to the Habitat Issue Triage for Tuesday, May 15th. We're halfway through May. Can you believe that? I will go ahead and try to share this screen. I think that's the right one. Everybody can see that okay?
Yep.
All right. So hopefully I've got all this board foo right, and we can just sort of start at the most recent, work our way down, and sort of see how far we get. Is this easier, do you think, to pop up actually in GitHub or just here? I guess we can see how this goes. This one I remember reading in our general channel.
Yeah.
So
It
that's
looked like just a fluke, but I didn't know what the default was. I think last night I saw this pop up and asked him to file an issue.
so I'd have to double check. I think that our default behavior actually does a little bit of a trick with a DNS packet. Sorry, a UDP packet which goes nowhere in order to get sort of an egress IP, and then so we take a guess unless you tell us what your sys IP I think maps to maybe the supervisor listen IP, something like that.
It's like we look for the first routable IP in the gateway.
Yeah.
I remember that, but I didn't know if there was a default that overrode that. If there was no routable IP in the gateway, if it defaulted to something.
Yeah. In any case, chances are we're going to have to probably look at it to make sure we repro it or to figure out what the edge case is. And likely there's a workaround, but that might involve you knowing what the IP is, which isn't as awesome as it could be.
Right.
So that ends up being, so I go to labels. Is that kind of what other folks do?
Yeah.
Because I always want to classify
backlog and pipeline if you know where you want to put it. Yeah.
And backlogs are current terminology for, like, chances are we're going to be looking at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's correct.
It is currently the pit of all issues.
And I'd say that's supervisor. I would claim right now that's a bug, although it could, yeah. If it's not a code bug, it's a like usability weirdness, which is kind of the same thing. But I will just say less easy. I guess that's a guess too, right? Chances are that affects these. And now that I have everybody here, I know this is super selfish because I'm but I'll ask this question. What's the P123 correspond to?
It's like the priority level, but I forget if it's in an ascending or descending order.
Okay. So likely we don't need to assign that, but I have not been doing that in anything. I would say for the moment that's mostly the supervisor vertical, although I tend to also, I would probably also be looking at on the DevX side as well.
Yeah. Yep. And then that should be it.
Yeah. All right. Whoa, cool. Okay. All right. This one is also open today.
Yeah, I know that this would clean up a lot of default TOMLs, especially my default TOMLs, where I tend to do things like enabled equal true rather than like if defined.
Right. So if I remember correctly, there is currently no operator or helper that ships in handlebars, I think, right?
Not Not for this, no.
So we could, in theory, have something like stir-eq or something like a helper that takes
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, we have
two strings or two variables or something like that.
Right. Yeah, I don't think we could implement it as described in this issue, but I think you could get the same behavior.
Yeah, I think so. And probably that it's a little crazy we don't have one yet. It just that makes a lot of sense to me. That we would need something like that. And you're probably right, it probably would clean up some default tomls. The best that we have is an unset key value string, whatever, ends up being null, which maps to false. So it sometimes works if something's not set, but not if you're looking for something.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say that makes decent sense. And I guess that is our supervisor friend. More feature. Probably the implementation's not as hard as getting the design kind of right.
If I recall, those handler helpers are not super hard to write. It's just, yeah, figuring out the right UX around it.
And sometimes getting like a literal value versus like getting the value out of a variable is sometimes a little weird, or I would struggle a little bit to get that right. But I think that would do that. Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Yep. That's the best thing about triage, is you don't actually have to solve the problem. You just have to acknowledge that it is a problem that you would like to solve.
Yeah, that's quite nice.
I'm with Snoop Dogg.
Oh dear. See a CLI way to hook up the plan to builder. Yeah, that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think the reason they hit this is their origin was different, or they had an origin mismatch. So builder was strictly saying like this has to be foo, and they assumed it was bar. So it built fine in their local environment because it was building its bar. But when builder went to go build it, it was like, no, I don't have foo keys.
I'm not so sure builder should ever be looking at package origin in a plan. If anything, we probably should take it out of plans, given that like the studio almost always overrides that variable and the build program's always happy with it. It's just weird that somebody's bothering to check. It means that I couldn't take like a core plan and fork it into my repo, leave it as is, and then wire it up to my fnickel origin. I'd have to change that package origin. That seems
you have to make that change. Yeah, that is annoying. And I've done that. And when I fork other people's plans, and I'm like, oh, the first thing I have to change is the origin because builder's not going to build it.
Yeah, that's.
I would take that as an interesting counterpoint to their feature request. Although I think part 2 of their feature request is completely valid.
Yeah, I still want to see that. I wonder if maybe there's just a an additional kind of, well, at this point, I almost consider that a bug because that's just so weird, but maybe a feature to the builder thing to like, maybe don't check that. I don't see what the harm would be. We introduced that hab origin and then enforced it with the studio to make that handy to copy keys. That's how, almost 100% of people use the system now, which means hab origin is never actually ever honored anywhere, like almost never.
Just in builder.
How would you specify the origin if you didn't specify it in the plan or in an environment variable if you were building with the CLI?
Yeah, so way back when we didn't even have a studio and we just had the build program, We were checking for package origin when we realized that we need this notion of an origin. Then at some point, one of us introduced the feature of like, it'd be kind of nice if like I could, if I could set like just an environment variable and then it would use like my key instead of that one. And then I think we took advantage of that when the studio came along, because at least when I was writing the studio, I didn't know like what keys need to go in, and I don't really want to copy every key in because like maybe now somebody would get access to a key they wouldn't have otherwise. So it'd be nice if you could tell the studio somehow, which is where we started with that -key thing, and it looks for the the name of the key, which probably also sets hab origin at some point, or like that they're like a related idea, and then copies the right key in. But it means that when you're in the studio now, you have an environment variable that's almost 100% of the time set. Or if you don't insert a key, then it's going to honor that hab origin, but you won't have the key around, so it'll fail in a different way about as early in the program. So yeah, that's why I'm kind of with you, Elliot. I think we probably could like propose to maybe even relax it. It's informational. It's kind of nice to know, but maybe I can say something to basically. I like the idea of the plan connect. Maybe I can say that here. I don't get tab completion here, do I?
No. I've fallen into that pit also.
Suppose I can do it too, but I also know Blake's a really stand-up person, and he probably would happily do that too. I guess this is a bit of a feature request, but would this be something we would consider looking more into? I would say probably yes.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's fine to toss in the backlog.
Now, what this affects is kind of interesting. There's probably some relationship with kind of the build stuff. I guess that's featurey. I don't know if I would. Let's just say it's less easy. I don't really know.
Yeah. Mostly, I think the most important labels are just the verticals and then what type of issue it is.
Yeah. I'm not going to rule out a little shellcode potential. Yeah, this one sort of cuts a little bit across that it might involve some build changes. There might be some CLI stuff. I don't really know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those two are appropriate, though.
So I've been abusing this label anyways. And if people are saying it has to be in one, I'll say, why can't we share?
Why not both?
I use multiples often, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a cross-cutting concern. I don't know how you, I don't know how you get around that. Okay. I think we've put some meat on that one. Oh, nuts. Yeah, we should probably respect that. To support Builder API. So that is probably for in an environment where perhaps if a depot was to contact another depot.
Oh, I see.
Or like to be a client of an HTTP call. Would that seem maybe
probably
right?
For not the SaaS, yeah.
Because as I understand it, if we're using the same like Rust API client that we kind of use, I believe we have support of that out of the box. But maybe it's a matter of configuring some of the service components to say, hey, like I want to use this variable, maybe.
Probably.
I'll trust that Slim knows what he's talking about, being on the builder kind of sub-team. Well, that's interesting.
What repo is this file in? Oh, it's in the on-prem builder
one. Yeah, I think so. Well, now I know. I think that's probably enough for Slim to understand. We can probably just filter that down a little bit better. Okay. This seems back to something that makes more sense, at least like broadly. Oh, yeah. Okay. I think that is the studio. Okay. So yeah, the interesting thing with Windows and the studio in Windows is it's not a fully contained environment. So it is a PowerShell subprocess. There's a little bit of isolation with some environment variables and stuff. We mount like a special drive that's like a habitat drive that you can do in Windows, except there are some programs that at the end of the day, they need to know the actual like real path to binaries. So there's some places where we have to say like, no, it's actually like C:/ whatever it is, have packages. And that sometimes involves calling this PowerShell resolve path. But when I was in there last, I noticed we don't do it fully consistently because it's hard to catch it in all places. So again, Matt filing this likely means he's found a problem or a place where things fall down, like the SQL Server. Oh, look at that. I guess it showed up because it was labeled, just not in the backlog, right?
That's right.
And yeah, it'll take a little bit of work. It's not impossible. It's just you got to audit all the places where there's paths. I take it we go through core plans as well, or should I?
Yeah, okay. We do.
Yay.
Huh.
Well, I would wager to say that feels like a bug.
Yeah.
I would put that at least in the less easy category. It could be simple, but yeah, who knows?
It's always less easy when you're dealing with somebody else's software.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose that makes sense.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is an airlock issue that's affecting a few plans.
Oh no, I have left. Damn it. Ah, yeah, okay. Well, I hope it's gonna go back to where I was. Son of a gun. You see how it totally didn't?
Yeah.
No, and if I close the issue, it will close the issue.
Yeah, just go back one more time.
You know, if I use my web browser, yeah. And now it's...
Now you just need to resort it.
Oh, okay. Holy moly. It's gonna be fine. If I wanted to open that.
Deep breaths.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is fine to file. It's just a placeholder for when that other issue gets addressed.
And that would be this one.
Yep.
So yes, this is something, and it is related to this airlock, or I guess in more general for any folks, rootless, like a rootless namespace or user namespacing or unprivileged build container environment. We basically made a small version of like what a run C kind of gives you, and some of that involves mapping a non-root user into like a Linux namespace. And we're doing some like user mapping. The interesting thing with tar is, so inside of that space in the studio, it thinks it's root. And so for all intents and purposes, it is. But sometimes that triggers programs to behave differently. And tar is one of them. So when you extract a tarball with GNU tar when you're root, it will try and honor the users and permissions in the tar archive. When you're not a root user, though, it will default to setting it to your own username because you don't have permission, to set those IDs. And it turns out your user outside of that namespace also doesn't have permissions, but GNU tar doesn't know that inside because it thinks you're root. So there's a super handy flag that I found, which is no same owner for GNU tar, which basically makes it behave as though you're not a root user. And that we have in our build program. So if you do normal like plan, do unpack stuff, this all works, which is why we have hopefully only impacted a small number of plans. Right now, I guess I would flag that as a, this probably just needs to go somewhere as an FYI if you're extracting stuff yourself, like throw that flag in. That might be the way to maybe close this issue out. But if it's showing up, is this one triaged? Yes, okay, good. Then I would say one way to fix this is if this plan actually does tar extracting, is just add the no same owner, and then we're done. Look, we won't see this problem again. And it works in like hosted builder or local dev, it's all the same. So I guess that looks right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a feeling you're gonna have feelings about this.
Oh no, I don't want to do this. And Stephen Dan is like super on the other side. Or at least my initial reaction, this is this in the context of the supervisor? Like I have a service, I have a hook, I want to write like literally bash hooks. Is that right?
I think that is correct. Yeah, and what makes this even worse is like whenever we run hooks in the runtime and you have it pathed to like bin shell, like you might be expecting that to execute in isolation, but totally doesn't. Just uses whatever shell is in your.
That's right.
in your environment, whether that happens to be BusyBox's shell or Ubuntu's flavor of shell.
Yeah. All right. I should probably add some stuff, at least for myself.
Yeah.
This feels like a discussion one. Would that make sense? Like a
Yeah.
needs discussion?
Yeah, you can actually leave it in the triage column.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Now, what it affects. My guess here is the subtext is we're talking about the supervisor and the what's on path when hooks get run or something like that.
Well, if you're going to leave it in triage, you actually don't need to label it like that. You can just drop a needs discussion label on it and just leave it alone. And then the discussion can facilitate whatever labels.
Yeah, one thing we do need though is a more correct isolation so that BusyBox is on path for the supervisor, so that if you don't say what you need, you get like a minimal amount that makes most hooks just kind of work.
Right.
We just need to make sure the supervisor actually runs that exact shell interpreter when it runs the hooks. And probably, however that gets fixed right, would mean that if you really wanted GNU Bash and core utils, like Atom as runtime deps to your service, we'll make sure they show up, for sure before the BusyBox version, and you're going to be good.
Yeah.
And like, there's an easy way if you want that. I guess the reason that I kind of my quick reaction was I don't want that is it means that the package baggage that the supervisor needs to haul around is now we're going up instead of like 5 to 10 megs, we're going up about 100 megs for stuff, and it just seems a little heavy.
Yeah, and we already get complaints about the supervisor size.
I mean, they're package dependencies, but yeah. Anyways, it does hurt first-time users. I am extremely sympathetic, but I should probably add in stuff as well. All right. Okay. Well, this will be interesting for timing. This is our current stable release. I would take it. I remember seeing something about this issue. I might be wrong, that possibly we were targeting the wrong group with this one, or maybe not. I guess I'm just quickly scrolling to see was there more updates. Okay, maybe not. So we probably still need to repro this. I'm just going to add a note here that so as we're live here, I'm also in the process of doing our next kind of stable habitat release, which is it's taking a bit longer, but we're going through like a few changes and some release fixes that we weren't able to exercise, so I'm just exercising them all. Anyways, the exact mechanism that the config apply takes in this new stable version is going to be slightly different than the last one. So this may or may not still apply, or it could be a slightly different thing once the next stable version is. So I'm just basically going to put a note that like this may only affect the 0.55 and down users, but I can't guarantee that. And yes, I have like English Canadian spelling, so that is spelled correctly, and I'm just going to keep the American spelling.
That's funny.
This is basically what it's like to be Canadian. You watch your audience.
Color, behavior. What is it? Are there any other OURs?
Yeah. Color's my favorite. We have a crate that a Rust crate that spells color like British style, and there were issues to be like add an alias for the American one, and I think like the first one it was like closed. I think they have it now, but I thought it was great.
I think most of the Erlang code I've ever looked at, every time they spell behavior is like,
yep,
Yep, and Erlang, it's behavior with a U.
Yeah, that non-American spelling.
Yeah. We get spoiled, though. I feel bad for any front-end developers that are having to write CSS. They have to do center and color.
Yeah, that's right.
It's I don't know if you're waiting for feedback on this with Fletcher, but I think we can just add it.
Yeah, I just talked a bunch and I was on mute.
Oh, I'm like,
How long have I been on mute? Oh dear. Okay.
Is he okay?
Yeah, just.
Oh my goodness.
Quietly sucking.
Yeah, so I was looking at this and thinking, well, that's an odd thing. I wouldn't call out something optional in the tutorial, and then went to the tutorial and saw. All right, so we do say we require Docker, but I couldn't remember in our tutorial if you say at some point I'm using Mac or I'm using Linux or Windows.
We should just take a pass and add a little note to this effect somehow.
Yeah.
You can throw it in the backlog and throw the docs.
So I mean, maybe it's as much as saying like Docker, like in brackets for Mac and Windows, and then there is more details. There's more like subnotes around that, but like,
yeah,
if you want to do a native Windows thing, but you don't want that in a 15-minute demo.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that we can totally tighten that up, and
that's good.
I suppose that would fall under that.
Yeah,
and I'm okay calling that a confusing bug because I think it's an easy fix.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I suppose it does sort of affect everything. So the wording, if it can reflect, that'll be good. And
throw a front end. That's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking that could be equally.
Oh yeah.
Somebody needs to do it, and I don't think it'll be a very hard thing. Anyways. Okay. Oh, it's my favorite feature of the entirety of Habitat. It's been linking. Is that actually for real, Elliot?
Yeah, that's for real.
Wow, I'm surprised by that. I didn't know that.
That should absolutely not happen. So that is straight up a consistency bug that never should have happened.
Yeah, I think I found that.
If it turns out that's not right, then it's closed. But
I found that when I was building Envoy, because Envoy or Bazel expects when it's doing a build that all of userland exists, and I saw that when I was doing hab package install -b, it was everything ended up in /hab/ben.
Yeah, that should only happen inside of a studio because it's honoring an environment variable, and both of those commands should honor the same environment variable. So it should have been the same code path. I think that will be relatively easy to fix. Well, okay. I think it's easy, but it's because I keep getting pulled back to that part of the code base to fix little things. So I think I know where it needs to go. That affects these two at least, and it's going to be a little Rust, and it's definitely a user experience. But also, I don't know if that's the right thing. We don't exactly have a vertical for infrastructure, but this is when I'm like, if we script something like binlink sufficiently bad, we can't Terraform provision ourselves. So I view these things as like, it's kind of important.
Gotcha.
Oh, well, that's a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, this is the feature request for like dev mode in the studio where your dev tools are available. You know, I mean, we've talked about this a lot.
Yeah, okay. In that case, that is probably something that will be.
We could probably actually mark this as a duplicate and close it.
Oh, okay.
I should
Do
probably.
you think it would be in Habitat proper?
Probably.
Or how about this? Yeah, if you're able to fish that up. Otherwise,
yeah,
I guess I can at least tag it. Sure, it's gonna be a little bit of work.
Oh yeah, you can close it as a duplicate of 4513.
Ah, okay. All right, what was that magic number?
4513.
4513. All right. This one will also be hilarious because our new release switch goes out the door. We are actually able to like stand down, roll in, deprecate, eliminate this thing for a moment that we had, which was called Have Butterfly, which was a package that contained some particular dependencies that we couldn't easily get into Hab. But unfortunately, Butterfly is an internal name for the representation of our gossip layer, and it kind of leaked out into a package name and then also into a subcommand. So this is something that we've sort of fixed up. And I was literally looking at this a few hours ago to find where is the documentation for what we got rid of. We didn't have it. So this is very true, and it's going to be gone. So I don't know what we do with that. It's kind of fixed in that there is no more Butterfly.
Yeah, that's what I was going to look at the pull request that closed Butterfly and then close it with that PR. Is it Jamie's?
Yes, yeah. And that's even worse that we ran into something here.
I think it. Well, it's 4929 is the issue number in the Habitat repo.
The so you don't happen to still have that number, do you?
I do. It's 4929.
4929. I think we're gonna actually be good. Is
Yeah,
it worth labeling?
No, you can just close and comment on it. I think it's fine.
All right. Jeez.
Cool.
I think that does
That's
it.
it.
And we're almost to time, even though we started a little late. That's not too bad.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can stop this.
All right.
Well,
Cool.
that's great. I think we might just end it there. I would expect that we would have a triage next week, although, yeah, I think we would have a triage next week.
Yeah.
I probably won't be at that. I'm traveling for our ChefConf conference. So if anyone's there, you can say hi. We can talk about habitat. And otherwise, we'll be triaging next week as well. So until then, we'll see you later.
See ya.